From past history of this school, you would have been able to predict that of those sixth graders who graduated from this school, only 25% would have graduated from high school. And of that 25%, almost no one would have gone on to college. But thanks to Mr. Lang and the support he and the community provided, 48 out of 52 of those students graduated from high school, and of that 48, 40 went on to college. Here at PS 121, in the heart of Harlem, we see perfectly illustrated what Benjamin Singer wrote about: the power of a child's vision with the help of the community to overcome history and economics, to motivate that child to extraordinary achievements. So, when we ask our children, what are you going to be when you grow up? We are helping them to think about something that is very important. Never treat their answers as trivial, even if they change their mind every week. We listen to show our children that their dreams of the future are significant, and our interest in their dreams builds their confidence and ability to shape their own future. For nations, for children, we see the same pattern, the same power, the power of vision. This is Auschwitz. It seems a strange place to come to talk about vision. During World War II, millions of people, mostly Jews, but Poles and Russians and Gypsies too, were put to death in camps like this. The reason we have come here is to examine the importance of vision under the worst possible conditions. It was here that the third scholar who influenced me made his discoveries. His name was Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist in Vienna. He had a good practice, lived the good life. He was Jewish. When World War II broke out, he was rounded up by the Nazis along with thousands of others and brought in freight cars to this hell on earth. When he arrived, Frankl set 3 goals for himself. 1, to survive. 2, to use his medical skills and help where he could. And 3, to try and learn something. Imagine that, to try and learn something amidst the Holocaust. Well, Frankl succeeded in all 3 of his goals. And after the war, he went back to Vienna and wrote his now classic book, Man's Search for Meaning, in which he illuminated what he learned. In his book, Frankl acknowledged that the majority of prisoners were executed soon after they arrived. What Frankl focused on in his writings were those who, like himself, were instead put to work under the most horrible of conditions. Millions died. Yet among those who survived, Viktor Frankl found a common thread, a trait essential to their survival. All of those who made it through had something significant yet to do in their future. Let me repeat that. All of those who made it through had something significant yet to do in their future. And here we see the pattern again, the power of a vision of the future to help overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Let me illustrate with one of Frankl's stories. 2 men were going to commit suicide. It was a common occurrence here in the camp. Their friends literally saved their lives by reminding them of their future. For the one, it was his child whom he adored and who was waiting for him in a foreign country. For the other, it was a thing, not a person. This man was a scientist and had written a series of books which still needed to be finished. His work could not be done by anyone else. And once they were reminded of their responsibilities to their future, they accepted it and were empowered to continue and survive. It worked for Frankl, too. He writes, "Almost in tears from pain, I kept thinking of the endless little problems of our miserable life. What would there be to eat tonight? If a piece of sausage came as an extra ration, should I exchange it for a piece of bread? Should I trade my last cigarette? which was left from a bonus I received a fortnight ago for a bowl of soup. How could I get a piece of wire to replace the fragment which served as one of my shoelaces? Who could help me to obtain work in camp instead of undertaking this horribly long daily march? I became disgusted with the state of affairs which compelled me daily and hourly to think of only such trivial things. I forced my thoughts to turn to another subject. Suddenly I saw myself standing on the platform of a well-lit, warm and pleasant lecture room. In front of me sat an attentive audience on comfortable upholstered chairs. I was giving a lecture on the psychology of the concentration camp. By this method, I succeeded somehow in rising above the situation, above the suffering of the moment, and he observed them as if they were now of the past. Frankl's message is clear. It is essential for you, for me, to have something significant yet to do, to have a positive vision of our future, because that is what gives meaning to life. Frankl wrote, "It is a peculiarity of man that he can only live by looking to the future. And this is his salvation in even the most difficult moments of his existence." We have come here to share a metaphor. You see, in our lives, we all have rivers to cross. On the other shore is our future. Sometimes the river is calm and the crossing is easy, but other times the river is turbulent, full of unpredictability. Too often during these turbulent times, we try to cross the river just by jumping in and starting to swim. We find ourselves swept away in the current, washed downstream. We hope that where we end up on the other side will be good enough. But there is a better way to cross the river, have a vision of our future. Then, when we see our vision beckoning to us with its positive power, it will reach like a rope back across the river to give us something to hang on to as we step into the water. Now, the river is going to grab at us, try to break our grip, try to carry us away from our destination. It takes work to hang on. We have to pull with our own muscles, think with our own minds, commit with our own hearts. No one else can do the work for us. And while there is no guarantee that we will arrive at our goals, this rope, extended from the power of our vision, offers us our best connection to the future. And if we grab it firmly in our hands, then we will be ready to take the plunge and venture toward tomorrow. We have looked at nations that have risen from nothing to world shapers. We've examined the research on the key ingredients that make children successful. We have visited a place where people were put through the most difficult conditions that human beings could be put through and survived. And all of these have a common thread: the power of a positive vision of the future. Now, I bet I know what you're all thinking. Where is the corporate discussion? If it works for nations, and it works for kids, and it works for adults, does it work for organizations? Of course. In fact, this discussion is fundamental to human nature at all scales. Organizations are one of the best places to see this illustrated because they have the proper size and complexity to really use vision's power. Think about organizations, beginning and mature, profit and non-profit, who are doing amazingly well, and I'll bet they're being driven by a vision. Let me give you some examples. Boeing, for instance, with its vision of a world-spanning huge plane that became the 747. Or Sony, with its vision of entertainment for everyone, the Walkman. French Telecom, the French telephone company that decided it would be the best phone company in Europe, when maybe it was the worst. IBM, that bet the corporation on its vision of the 360 series mainframe computer. Milliken and Company with its relentless pursuit of excellence. The Salvation Army, a nonprofit group that's had a 100-year vision to help the poor and the destitute. And Toyota, whose vision is not to be just the best car company in the world, but the biggest.